I guess everyone can hear me. Okay, it's being recorded now. So thank you for joining us. This is Qdabra Software's weekly webinar. I'm Joanne Alpapara. I'm going to present the demo today. And if you're ready, please change your feedback color to purple. Okay, so it's almost 8:05 Pacific time, and the presentation usually takes 20 minutes, more or less than 20 minutes. And after the presentation, there's a Q&A portion in live meeting, and you can type in your question there, and I'll try my best to answer. I guess we can start here. The title of our webinar today is Using Buttons to Integrate Workflow between InfoPath and SharePoint. So I just want to say that InfoPath workflows was a topic that we also presented in our past webinars, and because we got a lot of interest with people wanting to use workflows in their InfoPath forms, we decided to improve the workflow template part that we had before, and that's what I'm going to show you today. It's the revised version of the Qdabra's workflow XTP. And by the way, I also want to mention that Marcy and Ernesto, is Ernesto here? Yes, is joining us today, and they are going to help me throughout the middle of the demo, because obviously the workflow form requires at least 2 people to demo the approval process. So I'll begin now with my presentation. If my voice is not clear or you can't hear me, you can't understand, please let me know so I can make adjustments. So what are the webinar takeaways? In this webinar, you're going to get a reusable template part. So reusable meaning you can inject this reusable control and add it in as many forms as you want. And it comes pre-configured with a schema, rules, and layout. Everything is in this XTP. And you can simply drag and drop this into your own form. And we have designed it to have buttons that is going to trigger workflows and also enforce permissions. And you're also going to see a new workflow summary in the view. It's sort of like a quick summary of who submitted the form, who is the current assignee, who approved the form, things like that. And this XTP is also pre-configured to be used in separate libraries. And we are including a document in this webinar package, so it will serve as a guide for you because it contains the complete steps on how to configure this XTP in your form. And we have also kept a hide show history section in the form that's going to show the entire workflow history. So you're going to see all those features in a few minutes. So every company uses workflows, And I have here a very simple workflow process just to help you picture out what the XTP is going to do. So if, for example, your company is using an expense report, and the user comes in and fills out an expense report and submits the form, and the form will be submitted, for example, to the user's manager. And if the manager decides to approve the expense report will be forwarded to a department, let's say an accounting department or a finance department. So the accounting department can decide to reject or approve the form. So if it's approved, they will notify the user who originally submitted the expense report and inform him that, hey, your expense report is now approved and you can now reimburse the expense. So that's just a very simple example of our workflow process. Of course, it can be as complicated as you want, and it's true that workflows are different for each company. But basically, this is the XTP, or this is what the XTP is going to do. So if you're looking for a simple back and forth approval process, this XTP can be the right tool for you. So why is this important? It's important because it's a reusable template part, and like I said, you can inject this template part in as many forms as you want, and it's very easy to use because you can just drag and drop it into your own form. And also you can change approvers without republishing because we are providing you a separate form to manage the approver's data, and you're going to see that in the demo also. You'll also get a custom look and feel because we added formatting rules in the form status field, so that it changes color when the status is changed. And adding color makes it easy to recognize the status of the form at a glance. And why it's simple? Because it doesn't involve SharePoint workflows. So there's no need to navigate to SharePoint to approve the form. And there's no need for SharePoint Designer. Everything will happen in the form itself, in the InfoPath form itself. So how do you do it? I have here an overview of the steps you're going to need when setting up the XTP in your form. And we can't go through the step by step because it will take some time. So this is just to give you an idea of what steps you're going to need to configure the XTP in your form. So I guess I can proceed now showing you the actual XTP. Okay. Is it being shared? I think I shared my desktop, but it's not currently sharing.
It began to load, but it went away now.
Oh, okay. Share your desktop. Okay.
I see your designer now.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is the InfoPath template part designer. And I have opened here the workflow XTP. And when we design this XTP or template part, what we have in mind is to apply the best practice when designing InfoPath forms. And the best practice is not to show everything all at once, because users in general don't want to see a lot of input in the form. So what we did is show them parts of the template part at a time. So this section of the template part is called the summary section. This will always show in the form, but the details inside it are going to depend based on the current status of the form. And then this second section here, which has the approve and reject buttons, are only showing if the current user who opened the form is an approver. So if you're not the approver of the form, this section will not display for you. So I'm just going to scroll down below. So this is called the form assignment section. So this form assignment section is actually a hide show section. You can choose to expand or hide it if you want. And it contains all the information about the workflow process, like it contains who are the current approvers of the form, and you can also enter some comments here. You also get all the buttons, and we have a change history section here, which also shows you the entire history, workflow history of the form. And this is the schema. If you get your hands on this XTP, you can take a look at the schema and how it relates to the view. So once you get this XTP, you'll add it in your own form. And I have a sample form here. You see I have added some text fields here just to be more realistic when we're filling it out later. And when adding the XTP, you'll open the controls task pane. So I have it open here, but when you open here, you click here, the down arrow and the controls ribbon, and then down below you will see add or remove custom controls. You're going to click that, and then click add, and then select template part, and then click next, and then you're going to browse on the template part, Qdabra workflow section template part. And then once you finish this wizard, you're going to get the XTP right here in the custom section of the controls task pane. And just place your cursor where you want to place the XTP in your form, and then click on the XTP. And there, it's automatically added now to the main data connection, including all of the schema here. And it's also added in the view. course, you want to customize it to fit in your form. And you also want to connect the rules. But like I said, we're not going through all of the step-by-step process. The document will tell you the complete steps and how to configure it. So I have here a final form that I've already configured to use the XTP. Is it currently sharing or not?
You're still sharing, yes.
Okay. Okay, so this is the final form, and this is already pre-configured to use the workflow XTP, and it's ready to be published as content type to SharePoint. And then I just want to scroll down here just to show you how I made the changes to fit it into my form. I just adjusted the table sizes so it fits. So what I want to show you is what I have in my data connections. If I open data and data connections, you'll see that I have a secondary data connection to an XML file called workflow config. So what is this config file? This is the config file that is a form published to SharePoint, and it's containing all of the approvers data that we are pulling out using this XTP. And I'll show you what the form looks like. So this is the workflow config file that I was talking about. It contains all the approvers data, like approver 1, approver 2, and approver 3. Of course, you can add more approvers. It depends on your needs. But for this example, we're only using 3 approvers. And as you can see, I have 2 groups of approvers here, which corresponds to an ID. Like for this example, this group corresponds to ID 1, and the second group corresponds to ID 2. So how do we choose the group, a group of approvers for the form? If I go back in my final form here, I have added a department field, and if I open the drop-down list box, so it's a drop-down box, and I have here a list of departments that I can select from. For example, I have sales, I have support, and I have marketing. So if I select sales department, I'm selecting this group of users because the sales department corresponds to ID 1. So if I select support, I'm going to pull out the department that corresponds to ID 2. So that's how we're pulling out the approvers data. And the approvers data is not hard-coded in the form. It's in a separate form that is published in SharePoint. So I just want to go back here in my data connection so you can see that I've already added submit data connection to my SharePoint libraries. So these SharePoint libraries are involved in the workflow. So you're going to need to add those submit data connections when you configure the form. And if I click here on the Approve button and open, I'll show you how the rules look like. If I select a rule here, you'll see that I've added a submit data connection to the libraries where I want the form to submit to. But of course, it depends on the current level of the form. In this case, it's current level 1. So by saying level, meaning it means that it corresponds to the approver level. So if you're approver 1, the form's level state will be equal to 1. And if you are an approver 2, the level will be 2. So it's a number that accumulates once the form is submitted. So if I click here, this rule submits the form to a different department now because the current level is equals to 2. So basically that's how you're going to configure the form. It's just an idea of how you're going to set this up in your own form. Of course, if you get your hands on this XTP, you have more time to play around on it and customize it the way you want. So that's how it works. I'll now move to the actual demo of the form. So I have here 4 libraries opened. So these libraries are already configured to use the published form that we published to SharePoint as content type. So I'm going to open the form in the first library. So clicking Add Document. So this is how the form looks like in the browser. So as you see, it's not showing everything all at once like I said earlier. And it's not showing status yet because it's not submitted. It's a new form. So this is the form assignment section that I was talking about. It's a hide show section and it's hidden by default. So if you choose to expand this, you will see the details, but it doesn't have any details now because I need to select department. So if I select department, let's say I select sales, it will pull out the approvers for the sales department. So you see that I am approver 1, Marcy is approver 2, and Nesto is approver 3. And if we go back here in the config form, you'll see that it's what's exactly shown here for the sales department. So I'll type in some text. Okay. And then let's say I want to submit this form. And click Submit. So it's now submitted. And if we open it, you'll see that the status is submitted and it shows color in orange. And then you'll get some details here like who submitted the form, it's me, and what date, what time, and who is the current assignee of the form. It's me because I'm approver 1. So this part here, the approve and reject button shows because I'm approver 1. So I'm going to approve it. Then I click approve. And the form is now approved. And it's now assigned to Marcy for approval. And I'm not Marcy, so I'm not seeing the approve and reject buttons here. So that's how the XTP enforces permission in the form. And can we have Marcy show her screen now to show us if she gets the approvers button? Marcy? Hello?
Hi, sorry. Did you send me the link?
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, I think I have it. I can share.
Okay, I think Marcy is starting to share her screen now. But it's all gray still.
Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties.
Okay. Can we have Ernesto? I need to create another form for that.
Yeah, create a form and assign it to me and I can share out.
Okay.
I'll begin to share out while you're doing that.
Okay, thanks.
I guess what I can show in the meantime is this one that was just submitted. I shouldn't have the ability here to do anything because I'm not next in the workflow. Marcy is next in the workflow, so I'm after her, so I don't have any buttons. Can't do anything with it just yet.
Okay, I just submitted a new form, and I think it's now assigned to you.
Yep, so this one says Joanne is the submitter. Oh, Joanne is the first approver.
Oh, I am. Sorry. Okay, I'll approve the form. And
Yep, approve that, and that'll send that to me.
okay. So you can now refresh. I just approved it.
Okay, so now the assigned to column shows me, and the assigned to email shows me as well. So when I come to the form, I now get the approve and reject buttons. I can expand the workflow section as well. So I will approve that. And I think that workflow got a bit funny there because it was just you and I. But it shows the change history here, which I think is really important.
Yes,
What I will
thanks,
do is,
Ernesto.
yep. Do you need me to submit anything or approve anything else?
No, I think that's fine. I'll just show how the form is routed to another library.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ernesto. So I'll grab the content now.
Do you want me to try again to show my screen, or want to skip that? Sorry about that. I couldn't seem to get it to share.
No problem. I think it's fine. We can move along. Okay, back to my desktop now. Trying to refresh. Okay. So this is what Ernesto, I think, this is what you just approved earlier. And as you can see, I'm on a different department now because this is a different level. Because before we are submitting to this library, and once the form is approved by approver one, it becomes submitted to another library, just like how I showed you in the rules. So it's basically how it works, and at the end of the workflow, it goes to an archive library, and let me show you how that works. I need to be an approver again. I'll just save a new config file. Let's so, for example, I submit another form, and then I approve it because I'm also approver one. And if you refresh here, it is submitted to a different library, and the second approver is now assigned to it. So if I approve, because I'm also approver two, it goes now to the division level. And this is another level where I opens. It's trying to open in the client. Okay, so this me, the last approver, approves the form. And you'll see that the form is now moved to an archive library, and it's now completed. So if you open here, the status is now completed. With just a little bit of detail here, like who last approved the form, and it's me. So that's just one scenario of how this XTP workflow is going to work in your form. So, of course, it can be complicated, like a back and forth approval with rejects. It depends on how you decide to handle your form. So that is the actual demo of the XTP, and I think I'm going to go back now to my slide. I have one more slide to show. So this is just a quick comparison of what's the difference between using SharePoint workflows and InfoPath workflows. So SharePoint workflow don't support save without triggers, because these out of the box workflows trigger only when a document is created and edited. If you are familiar with SharePoint workflows, you'll see that those options in the workflow settings of the library. So when using InfoPath workflows, you can control the trigger in using button rules. So that's what we showed you. And with SharePoint workflow, it requires the users to navigate to SharePoint to approve and reject the forms. But with InfoPath workflows, we just approve and reject within the form itself. And there's no need for SharePoint Designer. We are creating the workflow using rules, and it's data-driven because we're using the schema in the InfoPath itself, so it's more flexible. So that's the end of the presentation. If you have any questions, I think we have some questions now in the Q&A. So from Scott, how does the form restrict the permission on the form when it changes state? For example, do not let the employee make any changes once the form has been submitted. Currently, the XTP is not designed to disable the fields in the form. You have to design your form to do that for you. If you want to restrict users to not make any changes once the form is submitted. So I think I answered that. If not, please tell me or let me know. How do we manage this? Do I select? Anyway, the next question is, how does it work when you are using SharePoint groups for approval rather than individuals' emails? Okay, I guess you're talking about Active Directory here, or the SharePoint groups that is set up in SharePoint. So the form or the XTP is not designed to get the current approvers from a SharePoint group that is set up with permissions. Like I showed you, it pulls out the approvers data from a separate form, and that's how it works. So if you're not using SharePoint, you can use Outlook if that's what you're using in your company. You can configure the XTP itself to send email as workflows. So that's I think I hope I answered the question. So next, Bruce. If the form is rejected, does the form move back to the library from which it came from? Yes. If it's rejected, it goes back to the previous approver or the previous submitter of the form. So that's how, in a sense, that's how it works. If it's approved, it moves forward. But if it's rejected, it moves backwards. So, thanks for that question, Bruce. Next, from Juan. As the form is being resubmitted to another library for approval, is the form deleted in other previous libraries? That's a good question, because right now it's not deleting from the previous libraries, but we're working on that. Like I said, we are continuing to improve this XTP, and we're hoping to include that feature in the next weeks or months. Not. But I think you can use SharePoint workflows and use an action to delete item. Once the form is routed back to the previous libraries, you can use that. Or I think you can use Qrules, because Qrules has a command to delete an item in SharePoint. Ernesto might be familiar with that rule. So
yeah, there is such a command.
Okay. So those are the options of how you can delete the form from a previous library. Next, sorry if I missed the details since I arrived, but how does the completed form get moved to other library? This can be done with an actual SharePoint Designer Breakdown, but I wasn't certain. This is a SharePoint config and not an InfoPath form. I think I showed you how a form is completed and moved to the archive library at the end of the presentation. But if you didn't get that, you can follow the complete documentation, and you can see how it looks like and how it's being routed to different libraries depending on the status of the form. So thank you, and I think this is the last question. Will there be security risk if we are managing all the data in a single XML file? What if the users see the other data if he downloaded the XML file and view the data inside? Okay. Maybe Ernesto has some idea on that question. Do you have any ideas on that?
I think there's always a risk of users downloading XML data, whether you use InfoPath workflow sections or whether you use SharePoint workflows. There's always going to be that security risk. The only solution that we have found in some of our work is to encrypt data. So that's not something that is accomplished codelessly, but if that highest level of security is necessary, then what we do is we encrypt the data before the XML is submitted. So even if the user downloads the XML file, all they're going to see is encoded characters. They're not going to be able to read, plain text. The same security risk exists in many scenarios, unfortunately. And unless there is encryption, we haven't found anything stronger than encryption to hide that data from the users.
Okay, thanks, Ernesto. So, can we able to? Oops. I think there's a last question left. Can we able to download the demo? Yes. I think Marcy has your emails in the registration, so we are going to send you the webinar package. Okay. So I guess that's it for the questions. And Marcy, I think, sorry?
If you registered for today's webinar, I have your email address. If you didn't register, you can always send an email to coursemanager@qdabra.com, and I'll get you on the list to send out all of the webinar information. We will have the recording for today's session available later on our training page of our website, as well as our YouTube channel. And I just wanted to mention really quickly that we do have some upcoming training classes. We have an in-person master training class coming up in May in Kirkland, Washington. And we also have a quick start, which is only 30 minutes per day for 5 days. And that's going to be in April. We don't have the exact dates yet, but we should have those soon. So again, if you're interested in either one of those classes, you can go to our website or send a message to coursemanager@qdabra.com.
Okay, great. Thanks, Marcy, for that information. So I guess that's it. Like Marcy said, you're going to get the webinar freebies, and we're going to send you those. So thank you for joining us, and hope to have you in the next webinar. Okay. Have a great day.